Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I hope you're well. Today we are going to discuss neo-regionalism or localism. And I'm Rod Fleming in the Philippines. Hope you're doing well. Before we proceed with the show, please remember to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. And please go to one of the sites which I'm about to give you the list, the URLs of, and tip me a little something, you know. Join my Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Just do something to help us along. Anyway, neo-regionalism or localism. Now, this is it's really the same thing, and it has come as a result, as a response to globalization and the globalistic mindset behind that. Now, you have to understand that globalism is a totalitarian belief system which thinks that there should be ultimately one world government which runs everything and runs everyone, which a moment's reflection will tell you is completely impossible. So the only way you can possibly make that work is by suppressing any disagreement. It's just not possible. We know, and we've had plenty of examples of what happens when these empires get too big. They just collapse, and usually in a very bloody manner. It's not nice. Globalism really came to its kind of high point, zenith, if you like, or maybe you could call it the nadir, in 2008, when careless judgments by American bankers, right, which were then sold off around the world, because after all, it's a global world, caused the financial crash of 2008, which is still causing problems today, by the way. I mean, the major issues have been, resolved and rolled over. But the fact is that there are still lives that are totally ruined by this. Globalism, the ideas behind globalism said, well, you can do things like you can take jobs in Pennsylvania and you can export them to China because it'll be cheaper. And it's a globalistic world, it's a global world. Why not? Why not use Chinese labour? Why not have this stuff built in China and then just bring it back in here? And that way you don't have to pay all these American workers and they can starve. Isn't that nice? Same thing happened to Britain with the European Union. When the European Union actually came into being, which was in 1990 or 91, I can't quite remember. What happened was that it became immediately possible for people to move freely between any member state and live and work, take their money, no visas, no work permits, nothing at all, just move, set up and stay. And that was a disaster. Because what happened was that all the businessmen who were trying to make as much money as they could, and to be fair, they were just trying to sell their stuff as cheaply as they could because people want cheap stuff. They started paying wages that looked very attractive to a Romanian or another East European who had only recently come out of Soviet control, remember? And they started paying them wages that British workers wouldn't look at, but seemed like a fortune to these foreign workers. And the British economy grew, but it was a false economy. It was a robber economy because it was living on wages that did not reflect the actual supply and demand situation within the British labour market. And of course what happened was that earlier this year we left the EU. Those people are no longer allowed to just come to Britain and stay in Britain. Not allowed. You need a work permit, right? There are arrangements for people who've made their homes in Britain, and I guess some of them will stay, but a lot of them have already left. They've just gone, that's enough, we're out. Because they know they're not welcome. I mean, I'm not against having a bunch of Poles down the road. Don't bother me. I've always liked Polish people. But this is the fact of life. And so now, last week we had a number of hauliers, that's, what would you call them? Transport facilities, transport companies, road haulage companies, complaining they couldn't get drivers. They were paying their drivers exactly what they paid them in 1980. Is it any surprise they couldn't get drivers? What happened was all that the East European drivers that they'd been using, who were happy to work for £10 an hour, They can't do it anymore. They've gone home. So what are we going to do? Oh my God, we're actually going to have to pay people proper wages. Ah, that's terrible. That's what's actually happened. That is what's really happened. So globalisation and the concept behind it, which is globalism, caused real damage, really huge damage. The American Rust Belt exists because of globalism. Britain's manufacturing industry was kind of put onto a staggering start for itself, you know. Give me last pick. By Thatcher. And then along came the globalists. And they ripped the guts right out of it. Oh, why should you use British gold when you can have Polish gold? It's just as cheap. I'm not talking about the pluses or minuses of using coal. I'm talking about the fact that when you did that, what you did was you gave money to Polish workers and you took the jobs away from British workers. And you didn't think that would have an effect. You didn't think that a little while later that might just cause a big problem. And what actually happened was that when we left 30 years later, Britain is now in a mess because they don't have the skilled workers that they need. And the situation is close to panic. Farmers depend on seasonal workers, especially in areas like soft fruit production, of strawberries and raspberries and table berries, things like that. In Britain, foreign fruits are rarely seen in supermarkets today. I have good contacts, by the way. It's nearly all British fruit, but they depended on foreign workers to pick it. They had whole camps, hundreds of foreign workers on each farm. You know, when they came in for 5 or 6 months in the summer, did all the work, and then buggered off home. I mean, they used to use students, but then no, we got some East Europeans coming, we'll use them instead. Maybe they're more reliable. I don't care. The point is, they ain't there anymore. So globalism and the globalistic ideas, they failed. As soon as the brick came out of the keystone, I'm sorry, we're not in the EU anymore. You can't come in. That was it. Fell apart. So what's the solution to this? And the solution is the one that I've always said is the solution. I said right at the start, globalism is a really, really bad idea and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. Is neo-regionalism, or actually better called localism. And that is where you buy locally. You have your stuff made here, not in Sichuan. You know, you just have it made here. And the idea always was to provide goods to Western consumers that were cheaper than they should have been. Well, that can't be anymore. Certainly not as far as Britain's concerned. Can't be anymore. You're going to have to pay a reasonable rate. If you want to buy stuff from China, then it's going to have a tariff on it. You know? So why not you just pay people in the local factory? Like you should have been doing all along. But there was globalism in the brave new world, which is now gone as far as Britain is concerned. As far as I can see, by the way, the EU as a whole has definitely got a sell-by date on it now. A concept invented by the EU, incidentally. And it won't be long in coming that we place the shrouds over the once wonderful, actually never wonderful, but once powerful EU. Neo-regionalism and localism are the way forward. And that means you shop locally. You don't go to Amazon. You go to the shop down the road. You walk down there, you use your little legs, you know. You actually walk there and you say, have you got this? Have you got that? You go to the local bookshop and you say, you know, I fancy a book on such and such. Do you have one? And the wee guy goes, wait a minute, I'll have a wee look. We've got this, what do you think of this one? Okay. Or no, I haven't got anything like that. But I tell you what, let's have a look and we'll see what's in the catalogue. And if you want, I'll just get them ordered in and you can choose one. That's what they used to do, you see. And you go back 3 days later and the boy would have 3 or 4 books. Got these books in. It's all right, you want to take one? You can take them all. He'd be delighted. Otherwise, you just send them back to the publisher, you see. That's how it worked. Didn't have Amazon. Didn't have this utter laziness. This utter laziness of society that said, oh, we just have everything delivered to the door. We're not going to go to the shops. You're not going to go to the high street. People complain that their towns are eviscerated, that they don't have high streets anymore. The high streets are full of thrift shops and they're disaster areas. They're all boarded up and they're hot spots of crime. They weren't like that 50 years ago. They were not. Why did it happen? It's because you lazy, idle what's-its don't shop locally. You actually bought into all of this globalisation BS. I mean, who the hell buys fruit? You know, who buys strawberries in January? If you happen to live in Britain. Now you know that they were actually grown, where? I guess Morocco, maybe somewhere, South Africa, somewhere like that. And they were flown, jet plane, pollution, carbon, so you can eat them in January with your bloody champagne at New Year. Who does stuff like that? What kind of insanity is that? No, you have your strawberries in the summer when they get ripe. You know? And you have them at your garden party with your ice cold champagne. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way it's always worked. You know, this is a long time ago. I might even have the pictures. I did a piece on this South African guy who'd moved to, I think his parents were from the EU, so he could move in quite easy. He'd moved to Britain, right? And he was importing flowers, fresh flowers, so that you could have fresh flowers on your table in the middle of January. They were being flown in by jet from South Africa. Can somebody please tell me where the sanity is in that? How does that get to be seen? People are hopping around fucking on one foot so they wear their shoes out, saying, oh yeah, oh, carbon footprint, sea level rise, and yet they're still shopping on Amazon and they're still buying their fruits, their strawberries in winter that were flown in. I'm not sure I understand this. This might be a wee bit beyond me. I normally consider myself to be a fairly sharp individual, but this baffles me. So, the future must include, for Britain and for many other countries, must include turning their back on globalism. And that means the end to the EU, because the EU is just globalism on a small scale, globalisation on a small scale. It means the end to all of that. It means an end to the WTO. Each country should be free to decide its own tariffs against every other country, or for every other country, and that is that. Why should we accept that? You've got a situation where in the West we're buying products made by slave child labour in China. Conditions that would not be allowed, could never be allowed. Certainly not in Europe, certainly not in Britain. It would be, the owners would be in jail. And yet, the products are on our shelves and we buy them. Where's the logic and where's the morality in this to start with? Where is the moral justification for doing this? For getting some Chinese businessmen rich on the basis of essentially slave labour. They're working for 15 pence a day. I don't get this. I don't see how people can start being all moralistic and saying, we've got to do all this, we've got to do that, we've got to stop using gas heaters and got to blah, blah, blah. When they're doing this. No, I don't buy it. I think this is the most appalling thing I can ever think of. It's one of them anyway. And I think of a few these days. Localization, or localism, it's a nice word actually. It's something I've always believed in. And the reason is that both my parents were traders. My dad was a foreign mail agent, and my mother had a ladies' clothes shop, which after my dad died, brought me and my brother up. And she always said, they both always said, but he died young, they both said, shop local. Protect your local businesses. Because if you don't protect your local businesses, they will go away. And then you'll be at the mercy of people like Amazon. right? They will decide everything. They will be the monopoly. They will decide the prices. They will decide what you're going to buy. That's what's going to happen. And the only people who are going to get, and they're the ones who are going to get rich. They're going to take the money out of your local community, suck it out, and take it somewhere else. And that's what they do. Do you know the local business? The local guys, they bought their car from Dad. A couple of years later, they traded it in, bought a new one. He spent his money in the local community. When he'd work done, he'd hire a builder, he'd buy stuff in local shops. Same with my mother. That money is circulating in the local community. It's not being sucked out to feed some globalistic monster based in California. Or China, for that matter. And it's time we all said, yeah, okay, we're going back to that. We've had enough. So anyway, that's enough for that rant. See you later, bye.